They're cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. They've got one marble and some tumbleweed upstairs. They're just forming. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years and the first year you were a potato laying on a mattress.
Is it wrong to make a compromise about what the toddler wants?
You try and compromise to avoid a scene. He just won.
I have a 1 and 2-year-old. My youngest says no to everything.
My main focus is always fun. Always connecting, bonding, fun, play, joy, laughter, positivity. It's all the good stuff. That's where I put all my energy. The discipline is just a tiny annoyance that I have to go through. And that's why I just like to get it done quickly. Welcome to the Bratbusters Parenting Podcast. My name's Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach. I'm a mom. I'm also a grandmother.
And I'm Amy Bunnage, Lisa's daughter, and I handle the marketing and planning here at Bratbusters. While I don't have kids, each episode will dive into parenting topics and Lisa will answer your questions. Let's get started.
Okay, what are we talking about today, sweetie?
Today is part 5 of the Calm Leadership Parenting series, and it is all things toddlers.
Okay, so part 5. So it's a 7-part series, so 1 podcast per day for 7 days. And this is the all things toddlers.
So how about you start off with what you consider to be a toddler?
I've just broken it down. I don't know what the internet says, but I've just always broken a toddler down to 16 to 35 months. Because to me, a baby is like obviously 0 to about 15 months. They're starting to put stuff together. They can start learning right from wrong more. And they can start having consequences very gently at around 16 months. And then 35 months, I end it there for sure. I'm more confident with that one. Because right at the age of 36 months, that's when they have the ability to reason. They can stop and think before they act. So that's when we move to the behavior board. Whereas before that with toddlers, it's just consistent corrective actions. And toddlers are cute as a button, but they're really all feet, no brains. They're just forming. They're brand new, fresh human beings. There's nothing wrong with them and what they do. It's just your interpretation of them or your expectations that are out of whack. Because they're going to do crazy stuff. They might stick their hands down their pants and smear poop on the wall. To them, they don't get that. They don't understand that.
They're just learning.
Yeah.
I think maybe a great place to start would be your top 5 tips for parenting toddlers.
Okay, I'll do that now. My top 5 tips for parenting toddlers is number 1, childproof your home so you never have to say no. That's a blanket statement. You'll still have to say it, but it's lessened an awful lot. If there's nothing for them to get into, you don't have to say no as often. Number 2, set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. So I rotated my kids' toys around. Most of their toys, like probably 80 to 90%, well, they didn't have very many toys anyway. I kind of wasn't into all that. But most of their toys were put away at any given time. And I just rotate them. And then it's interesting because when the smaller they are, the more interesting those toys are when they come out after a week. It's like they haven't even seen it before because they've developed. They're a whole week older. A week makes a huge difference with a 2-year-old. So they might even look at it differently and play with it differently. So rotate their toys around so they're never bored or rarely bored. Number 3, you connect with toddlers in their world. They're not about going to the nail salon with you. That's not their world. That's your world. You connect with them in their world, which would be more like going to the park and rolling down the hill with them. That's their world. They truly look at you differently when you do that. Number 4, you discipline toddlers in their world. Again, it's not in your world. I know that parents right now, it's a real trendy thing to have these big discussions around all their behavior, discussing all their big feelings and big emotions. That's ridiculous. They're not there. That's the mini therapy sessions. That's for you. It's not for them. They're about actions. They're not about words. So that's why you use consistent corrective actions to train them out of something that you want to train them out of. And number 5 is stop trying to figure them out. They're cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. They've got one marble and some tumbleweed upstairs. They're just forming. Imagine if you've only been in the world for 2 years and the first year you were a potato laying on a mattress. This is where we should say for Halloween, someone who watches us, they had dressed up their 2-month-old as a potato laying on a mattress.
You just loved that.
I thought that was adorable. I don't know how many people would get that, but I think people would laugh once they said what it was. I thought that was adorable. Okay, so that's my top 5 tips. I've got 50 tips, but that's just my top 5.
And I think that one of the biggest things you do talk about is really those expectations, because I think that if you go into anything, like if you go into a really hard fitness class thinking it's going to be a nice, gentle yoga, like that's going to be a lot more jarring than if you go in, you're prepared, you know it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I would say something that happens a lot is when let's say a toddler does something naughty, they hit you, and then you have a big discussion around it, and you say, "Now you know that hurt, mommy." You say you're sorry, and they go, "Sorry," and now are you going to do that again? No, no, and then you're like, "Phew, fix that one," and then they hit you again, and you're like, "What?" That's because you just disciplined them, or you treated them in your world. You expected them to find their inner adult in the way you just approach that. That doesn't work. So what you do is, if they hit you, you say no, and then you just remove yourself, walk away. If they hit you with a toy, you take the toy away. You follow it up with a very quick, consistent corrective action, not words. So parents are often confused by that. He said he was sorry. He said he wasn't going to do it again. They're just parroting you. It's not sinking in. They're not listening. Okay. They will repeat it. They'll look like, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And then you're absolutely shocked when they do. I'd be shocked if they didn't, if that's the only thing you're doing. So, and it does take repetition. They're not going to learn the first time. It might take 50 times.
They just do some funky stuff.
Oh, they're just little. Okay, they're just trying stuff out. They don't necessarily have control over their bodies half the time either. Keep that in mind too. It's just an impulse sometimes. They get upset, they flail around and hit you. I mean, not a lot of thought goes into it. That's why you don't approach it with a lot of thought trying to solve it, because there's not a lot of thought there yet.
Now, I want to just backtrack a little. You said the very first tip, you said, so you never have to say no in regards to the child proofing. What are your thoughts on saying no to your toddler?
Oh, I have no problem saying that at all, but they're not listening. They don't really care. To me, the word no just signifies I'm taking action now. It's just a sign, like it's just telling them, okay, no, now I'm going to take action. So yeah, nothing wrong with the word no. Nothing wrong with it. You don't want to be yelling it all the time. You never want to yell anyway, but you don't want to be using it all the time. But yeah, if you have to correct something, you just say one word, and that one word is no.
And I think that as well, you've talked about the fact that it almost lessens the value of it if you're saying it 20, 30 times a day.
Yeah, it's just a sign that you're going to be taking action, that's all. And it's very important how you say the word no, because you never want to look angry, disappointed, or frustrated. And you don't want to look stern either. You don't want to go no. You just say no. It's just a quick little, there's no anger in it, okay? But you're letting them know that that's not something you want them to do.
I think that's all well and good, but I think if your toddler chucks a toy train at you, hits you in the eyebrow, and you can just go, no.
Well, that's the human part too, is you're going to lose it sometimes. That's human. And I remember, well, a lot of this happens a lot actually. Parents will say, yeah, but what if they threw something really bad and it really hurt? They don't understand the difference when they're two from throwing a pillow to throwing a train at you, like, a metal train. They don't know the difference yet. They don't get it. So yeah, your reaction is often overdone as a result of something they don't even understand. They don't understand the difference between throwing a Kleenex at you and throwing a car at you. So yeah, you got to think about that.
Kleenex would be a little harder to make it over.
Well, they could bunch it up and throw it, I guess. As soon as I said it, I thought, what a stupid example.
You're like, there's ways. They could figure it out. They could
right.
put the toy train inside the Kleenex.
Ooh, there you go. Oh, don't give them any ideas.
Oh, for all the toddlers listening.
For all those toddlers driving down the highway listening to the podcast.
And then you talk about just how overwhelming the stage can be in general, just as a parent, because I would assume you're going from a baby into a toddler. And that's part of why you created the toddler boot camp in the first place, is just, I'm sure this is such an overwhelming phase.
It can be. Some toddlers are easy. I would say you kids were more on the easy side in that you weren't overly active, which if you've got a super active toddler who wears you out, it is definitely more exhausting. Some of them are just super high energy. By the way, they're also the ones who sleep more. My kids didn't sleep a lot because they weren't super high energy. So it's a, give and take here. But yeah, it can be exhausting. But your expectations going into it will help you deal with what comes up. I had a lot of experience with kids before I had my own, which helped a great deal. I think if you've never been with a toddler or had anything to do with little kids, it can be overwhelming. You're like, what? Why would they hit me? I thought they loved me. No, they're just hitting you because they didn't get their own way, or they're overtired, or they got too worked up. So yeah, it's the lack of understanding toddlers, which is often the problem. Once you know, oh, they're just kind of crazy, they haven't figured stuff out yet, it kind of gets a bit easier.
Okay, should we get into the toddler parent questions?
Yes, we should.
The first one is Shelby from the United States. I have a 1 and 2-year-old. My youngest says no to everything. He used to be my sweet one, and now he's into everything and crossing his arms and telling me no about everything. I don't know what to do. Help.
No to everything. Oh, that's my granddaughter does that. It's really funny. She's almost 2 now, and she says no to everything, but then she does it anyway. You'll say, hold my hand, we're crossing the street. She'll say no. And then she'll put her hand up and hold your hand anyway. It's hilarious. They've just discovered this power. When they say no, it almost always gets a reaction. That's why. So yeah, it's extremely common for a toddler, 18 months to about 20 or 24 months, that they start to say no. Very, very, very common. It's a powerful word. Yeah, so just follow it up with action. When they say no and it's something that has to be done, like my granddaughter, I say, okay, yeah, we're crossing the street. You have to hold my hand. She says, no, I just take her hand and we go. Like I don't discuss it. Okay. So don't give the word no any power. If it's something that has to be done, okay, we're getting in the car seat. No, they say no. And then you just put them in the car seat. Follow it up with action. So don't give it any power. That's all.
Okay, the next question is Hannah from the United Kingdom. My toddler is 29 months and has recently started hitting and pushing other children since his baby sister was born, who's now 3 months. He even headbutted his baby sister while I was holding her. What's the best way to tackle this behavior? I'm at the end of my tether.
Yeah, that's really common with toddlers. When a new baby comes in the house, it brings out the evil in them. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is jealousy, and the other one is you're occupied. You can't always address all this stuff when you want to, so they can get away with a lot more. So what I would do is if he's getting aggressive, especially with the baby, don't ever trust him around a baby. You just can't. So always make sure the baby's protected. Carry it around with you if you have to whenever he's around. And also, whenever you're feeding the baby or tending to the baby, have something that you do with him. Have a ritualistic habit, something that you do, a structure that you do with him. Okay, I'm feeding the baby. Go and get the feeding basket. So it's a basket full of little activities and toys that you only pull out that you can do with him while you're feeding the baby. So you want to sort of give him attention when maybe he doesn't get it. That could be part of it. Also, you use consistent corrective actions when he does hit. You say no. If he hit with a toy, you take the toy away. If he hit with his hands, you say no, and then you remove yourself and the baby. So it's kind of a little bit of a snub. You're letting him know, no, I'm taking myself away from you now because you hit. Taking the baby away from you now because you hit. And just say one word. Don't explain it. They're not listening anyway. Just say no and then take action. He'll eventually learn. But like I said, he could be feeling a little bit like his nose is out of joint. So have something. And if you're changing the baby, that could be the time to sing a song with him. So like a ritualistic a habit that you do whenever you're tending to the baby that includes him.
In your opinion, can you really prepare a toddler for a new baby?
Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Were you prepared for what was going to happen when you had your first child? It's like that. How can you possibly prepare a little tiny child for what's going to happen in their world? This brand new baby's going to come in, take your parents away from you a lot of the time. It's going to be screaming, might smell it, so yeah, you can't possibly prepare them. It's impossible.
You don't see this online, but there is quite a few things about how to do the preparation, and it's all about buy them a toy or you like read them a book and tell them what a good big brother or big sister they're going to be. What are your thoughts on those methods?
Well, how do I word this? It starts with C and then rap. That's crap. They're not, you just can't prepare them. They're not going to get it. Remember, they're all about actions. They're all about what happens to them, not what they've discussed ahead of time. You can discuss it till you're blue in the face, but they're not going to get it. Okay. How can you possibly prepare them for what's coming?
I think let me know if I'm wrong, but I think that this falls within like your thoughts around this is the same idea of the parents who claim that all they do is they just say, we're just going to calm down, and their toddler just calms down, and they claim that that's how they stopped a tantrum. Is that maybe it was just going to be an easy process anyways?
I was going to say, if you've got a kid who's going to maybe have a rough time, no discussions or therapy sessions or reading books to them is going to help, okay? Because they're not into this reasoning period yet. They're not there yet, okay? So, but a lot of parents think that, well, all I did was I got a book on a new baby and you're going to be a hero now, and I bought them a little toy to play. They probably weren't going to be difficult anyway. That's what I'm saying. The parents who brag about that mini therapy session approach tend to have easier kids anyway.
And the reason why I'm talking about your thoughts around this is I'm not a mom. I don't know a lot about parenting, but I've heard a lot about your perspective on it.
Yeah, I've worked with hundreds of kids and toddlers and teenagers, and it's just experience-based. And I've seen this mini therapy session done over and over and over again with toddlers, and it's so frustrating. I don't know who's teaching it because I've never looked out there. I don't care who's teaching it, but it's misleading. Remember what I said, you connect with them in their world. Their world is not reasoning and therapy sessions. And you also discipline in their world, which is not reasoning and therapy sessions.
Do you want to hear something funny? I coached gymnastics when I was like a teenager. I would have been 16 at the time. And I had this one little girl in my class. She was just wonderful. So kind, so sweet. And so she would have been about 3 or 4 at the time. And she just had a new sibling. So she goes, "Oh, you have to meet my sibling," or something like that, my new baby. And so I turn my back. I look around. She's holding the new sibling really wonderfully. And she goes, "Do you want to hold?" And I was thinking to myself, I don't think I can trust myself holding a baby yet. Here you are, 3. You can barely like walk really confidently, but beautifully holding the baby. And I'm like, I don't want responsibility.
So she was a little mummy. Yeah, and you'd never looked after babies. You've never changed a diaper.
No, gladly.
When I change my granddaughter and Auntie Amy's around, she leaves the room.
It's not my thing. We all have our wheelhouse. That is not mine.
But yeah, it's just a misinterpretation about where they're at. That's the problem with all these mini therapy sessions discussing all this stuff. Remember, reasoning is not their world. They're not there yet. They're about actions. Okay. And they live right in the present moment. They don't think, well, last week they discussed it with me, so now I understand. They're just not there yet. That's all.
Okay, the next one is Amanda from the United Kingdom. My 17-month-old has started screaming and crying the moment he doesn't get my attention when he wants it straight away, or he is finding a task too difficult, or if someone else gives me attention and even tries to give him attention. It's a little at the moment. I don't know whether I should respond to meet his needs or hold a boundary that he doesn't quite understand. I feel like he screams until I pick him up, so he's learned that he just needs to keep going and I will eventually pick him up.
Well, he's trained you really well. There's no way I'd pick up that kid if he was screaming. I would wait it out. I'm always going to win in those battles, and it's just a battle. It's a who can last the longest. That's all it is. He's 7, and I wouldn't walk away from him. He's still really little. I would be nearby, and I would look for that opportunity. As soon as he stops screaming and maybe his voice changes, his attitude starts to change a little bit, then I would go in, and I'd be very careful about that. I wouldn't do it before. So make sure that never works. He's learning to do this because obviously you give in, whereas I never would. I would let them scream and scream and scream, and I'd be right there. I wouldn't say anything. I'd be right there. But it's only really maybe a week of this before they learn. Okay? Because they learn, wait a minute, I get attention as soon as I stop doing this. I always ignore the crazy and reward the calm. And the screaming is the crazy. It's not really bad. It's just crazy. So yeah, I just ignore it. But I'm right there. I'm nearby because I got to come in quick when he's calm. I got to, you want to read a book or something? Or do you want to go to the park? Or do you want to go help mommy do this? I connect really quickly once he goes where I want him to go, which is the calm.
I can imagine this being difficult for parents because, as you said, how you approach babies is if they cry, you pick them up. And then it's kind of like, okay, they turn 16 months old and that's the cutoff on that day.
It is a bit of now it depends. If they're crying because they're upset about something, that's different. But he's just mad, I'm assuming. He just wants your full attention. So, and I always say you pick up babies when they cry, but it's a gray area. I probably stop. I don't do it as often. After 12 months, maybe 14 months, I don't do it as often. And then by the time they're 16 months, I'm probably not picking them up when they scream for attention. No. But I'm weaning them off that for a few months. When they are under 16 months, I use diversion. So if they are crying and screaming for attention, I might divert their attention to something else. But I call it indirect redirection. So you're not saying, come on over here. I just go somewhere and start playing with something and I let them join in. So that's how I handle it when they're not toddlers, when they're just under there. So you're kind of coming off, you're kind of pulling away from that redirection.
It's not a cold turkey thing.
It isn't. You can't all of a sudden one day, okay, you're 16 months old, that's it, not picking you up again. You're sort of weaning them off it. You're using redirection. You're picking them up when they're babies, then you're using redirection, and then you're ignoring the crazy and then rewarding the calm. There we go. How's that?
That's good. I don't think I've ever asked that question.
Well, I'm sure I've answered it, so someone else must have asked it.
Okay, the next one is Chloe from Australia. I have a 2-year and 9-month-old little girl. She is an intense, highly determined, and very strong-willed firecracker, but hilarious and very loving. She's been going to preschool 2 days a week for 3 months now, and in the last few weeks, she started hitting or headbutting us and her fellow preschoolers just out of the blue. There's no common theme or reason as to why she hits, and she very solemnly tells me straight after hitting that it's bad to hit people. I've tried to implement consistent corrective actions whenever I can, but it isn't always clear what this could be in certain situations. For example, she will often hit us when we are trying to get her dressed or her teeth brushed after a bath, or when we're trying to get her in a car seat, that kind of thing. In these situations, I don't know what to do. I can't walk away because she needs to get dressed or we need to get her in the car seat. I can't really take away the fun because these are more practical situations. What would be an appropriate response? I'm working very hard on not having a big reaction when hit, but what will send the message that hitting others is not okay if words don't work?
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about the school. You can only fix it at home because toddlers are in the moment. They're present in the present moment. So yeah, if she's hitting, try not to try. It's a stupid thing to say. Try not to get hit. If you know she's going to hit when you're trying to brush her teeth, you're ready for it and you stop it and you just go, nope, real quick, nope, and then brush your teeth. Follow it up fast with action. You might even have to hold her hands. And if you're trying to get her changed or whatever, you want to prevent the hits if possible. The more hits she gets in, the more of a habit they become. So think about that. If they get a lot of hits in and you're not preventing them, she's going to get used to doing it. It becomes like a muscle memory almost. It gets easier to do. So you want to try and prevent the hits because you know they're coming. Okay. And that will fix it at school too. I don't know what's happened at school. Maybe someone else hit her. Maybe she just found it worked. Maybe she hit a kid and then she got what she wanted. That could have just been that. So yeah, you're going to have to physically overpower her to prevent yourself from getting hit. And also she said I shouldn't hit. Yeah, that's a perfect, that just backs up what I'm saying. Words mean nothing. They already know right from wrong. That's not, understanding has nothing to do with their behavior. Nothing. It's the consequences, the consistent corrective actions. It's the negative that happens after when they do something naughty. That is what corrects it. Has nothing to do with understanding. A lot of parents want to discuss all this stuff. Completely useless. They already understand. Because she just said it. I know I shouldn't hit, but she keeps doing it. So yeah, it has nothing to do with understanding.
Okay, the next one is Valerie from the United States. Hi, I have a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old. We tried to prep as best as possible for the new arrival and have had a series of challenges with our toddler since her brother's arrival. We really try not to do it a reaction, especially with no hitting and biting toward me, but it's confusing on how we're supposed to react when she intentionally goes to hurt her brother. At this point, it's almost every day, and it seems intentional and honestly aggressive. Advice on how to respond. We do a behavior chart and try to remove her from the situation, but it doesn't seem to work. Other challenges we've been able to manage, but not this one.
Yeah, there's too much opportunity there. I would never let an aggressive toddler near a baby, ever. This is a 3-month-old baby. You get a toy thrown on that soft spot. I won't go on about it, but yeah, I would never trust that toddler. And I would, if they're going to hit, I would just say no and take a toy away every time. So every time they hit, I would take a toy away. Don't let them hit the baby, but they might hit you, and take a toy away. So also, I did talk about this earlier on this podcast about whenever you're feeding the baby, make sure that she has like a little basket, and that's the feeding basket. So it's little toys that she never gets any other time, just dollar store stuff. It doesn't matter what it is. It can just be books, even if she likes books. So every time you sit down to feed the baby, that's your time to connect with her. Okay. She sees the baby as the enemy who takes mommy and daddy away from them. And also she gets this heightened emotion every time she hits the baby. So that's why they go for heightened emotions. If they're not getting enough of the happy stuff, they'll go for the negative stuff. So yeah, connect with her while you're feeding the baby, and otherwise just deal with it. As I always say, consistent corrective actions. Take her away, remove the baby, remove yourself, or take a toy away from her. There's got to be a quick negative reaction to her hitting.
I think with this one, I also want you to touch on the idea of the behavior chart for this age.
Yeah, she's too little for that. Yeah, it doesn't start till they're 3. So she's far too young for that. She's not going to get it. That they don't have the sense of reasoning yet. They don't stop and think before they act until they're 3. That's the sense. I don't know what it is. Some part of the brain develops and they can start to reason things out.
But I do know that you've had some parents come to you say that they have started it early, possibly because their child may be advanced in other areas and they feel like this would just be an addition to that. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't recommend it. Don't start it until they're 3. All kids can do it at 3, and maybe some could at like 1 month before, but all kids can do it at 3. It's kind of confusing. If you start it and it doesn't work, it loses some power when you do start it again. So I'd rather start it when they're ready. It's like potty training. I wouldn't want to potty train too early because they've already had experience with it not working. I waited till my kids were 2.5. I knew they were ready. You were probably ready closer to 2. But I thought, no, I'll just wait till she's 2.5 so there'll be no accidents. And there weren't. It was just smooth sailing.
And then I just need to clarify. You said all kids. Of course, there are exceptions.
There would be exceptions, but I just don't, I mean, that's more coaching. I would need to figure out if they're an exception. And if you've tried it and it works, then I'm not going to argue that. If you've got the behavior board up with a 1-year-old and it's working, then good for you. I'm not going to argue that. But yeah, I don't recommend it. In all my 50 plus years of experience with kids, 3 is a real golden age for that. They can stop and think before they act.
You're in the delivery room. Just pop it out. Okay, so your rule.
Here, Johnny. Yeah, I didn't start it quite that early. And I never used a behavior board. It's just a teaching tool. So you won't be using it forever. It's just a teaching tool. Like I would never use one. But it's to get you organized and teach you how to focus on one behavior at a time. That's all. Whereas I would deal with everything in day one. But I've been doing this forever. So I invented all this stuff. But it's a teaching tool. So you don't need the behavior board forever.
Okay, the next one is Gina from Canada. I have an 18-month-old daughter who, at this very moment, is very patient and considerate and on the more timid side. It often happens with other children where they'll grab toys or push her, either accidentally or sometimes aggressively. How do you recommend reacting and responding in these situations?
Is she 18 months, did you
Yeah.
say? 18 months. Yeah, that happens with my granddaughter when I have her one day a week. And she's just little. And she's passive, like she doesn't hit or grab anything. And when other kids do it, I just let them do it because their parents are around. I just let them take it. If they hit her, I would just pick her up and take her away. I never correct other people's kids. It's none of my business, and their parents are right there anyway. So yeah, I literally just move her away and I get her another toy to play with. Yep, you can't do anything about other people's kids. It's not your kid, it's their job. If you're babysitting, then I basically do the same stuff that I'm doing with my kids, right? But if the other parents are there, nope, nothing.
I think this might be a good thing to talk about is further down the road. Let's say they get a little bit older. At what point can you try to give them a little, I don't know if this is the right word, a little chutzpah or like a little.
Um, ugh. You mean so how to stick up for themselves to some
Yeah.
other kids going after them? Yeah, I still don't, and I'll tell you why. They have to be. No, I don't. If a kid comes up and grabs a toy off my kids, did I ever tell you to fight back and how to get it?
No.
No freaking way. Because not all kids will give in to that. Not all bullies, and I shouldn't call them bullies, but you know what I mean, the forceful kids who do take stuff, they're not all cowards. Some of them are really good fighters and they'll fight back. So I never taught my kids to have chutzpah and fight back. Nope, I never did. I taught them how to have confidence and how to deal with bullies, but I never taught them how to fight back and get that toy back, ever.
I remember very vividly, I would have been like in middle school, and this boy in class was kind of taunting me or just being really mean. And I remember standing up in the middle of class. I turned around, everyone was quiet, and I said, "You need to stop doing that now." And I sat back down, and everyone's like, "What the heck?" Just
The thing is, she's very sweet. She just was a very sweet little girl. But if pushed, she would stand up and defend herself. I was amazed at that. I remember that.
or at least like that's what my memory of it is. Maybe that isn't what
Yeah, no,
happened.
and the
but
teacher said that too. They said she'll take a lot, but then the kids know not to push her too far because she will stand up for herself.
he never bugged me again.
No, she just stands up and announces it in front of the whole class.
And I am more of I think I probably would have been the more timid. As a toddler, I would have let kids kind of take my toys and stuff.
Both of you did. Yeah, you weren't aggressive at all.
So I just tell that to the parent that, maybe you'll have one day a kid standing up and telling the kid off.
Yeah, I did. Well, I never did that, which is interesting. You did. You had chutzpah, it was quite shocking. And because the reason my kids really listened to her is because that wasn't something she often did. So when she said that, boy, they listened because she meant it. So it was like what's that called? You had a long fuse.
I'm a tough cookie.
Yeah, she is. Don't mess with her. And yet she's not the least bit physical. But I was shocked when she did that. I thought, good for you. So yeah, it doesn't mean that they're weak. I would never teach a child to take a toy back if a kid took it, ever. Yeah, I just wouldn't because I don't want them to get hurt, basically. Because a kid who's going to grab a toy off a kid will also hit a kid usually.
Okay. The next one is Natasha from South Africa. My 2-year-old, all of a sudden, when I offer him food or drink, hits it out of my hand if he doesn't want it. He never did the hitting thing with anything or anyone before. How do I stop him from hitting food and drinks out of my hand?
Well, is he sitting at the table? I don't quite understand what's going on there. I never give kids anything to eat or drink unless they're sitting in a high chair at that age, ever, and up at the table. So I don't know what's going on there. Are you somewhere else or... I'm not too sure about that. But if he does throw food or anything, I would say no, and then I would hand feed him. There's no way I would give him a drink after that. I would hand feed him and make him drink like I would do it myself. And then he says, no, he's going to have a fit, by the way, but that's okay. So you just let him know, if you throw food or drink around, I'm going to hand feed you and I'm going to hold the drink cup while you drink. And then he's going to say, no, 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 he doesn't want it. Now he's mad. So you say, okay, you're all done. Then get him all cleaned up, put him down. And then if he still needs to eat or drink, then you can try again. And you can let him have a little bit, just a tiny bit of a drink, so that when he does throw it next time, and you just go through the same process. Every time he throws it, you're hand feeding him.
Okay, we have one final question. So, Jose from the Netherlands, is it wrong to make a compromise about what the toddler wants? For example, I want to play with all the pillows on the bed. You can play with 2 big ones, okay? I'm a grandma of a 2-year-old boy. He and his sister, who's 1 year, are 3 days a week with me and sleep 1 night a week by me. I often move in his direction what he wants, make him ask nicely, and most of the time with a compromise. When I hear an error coming in his voice, so something that's difficult for him to do, what he wants, and he's going to be frustrated, I distract him with something else and I go, oh, there's a car outside. Should we go have a look? That's the gist of the question.
Okay, it's a grandparent asking. I don't teach grandparenting, so I'm just going to pretend a parent asked that, okay? Is that fair enough? Okay, what you're doing is you're doing avoidance. You don't want them to play with the pillows, so then you try and compromise to avoid a scene. He just won. You don't really want him playing with any pillows, do you? So you're always trying to compromise and redirect him. So he's kind of winning. He's controlling you. So if I don't want kids to play with, they don't understand exceptions either. If you said no pillows and then he says yes and then you say, okay, 2, he just won. You've already said no pillows. I'm sure he knows you don't want him playing with them. But then why just 2? Why, it doesn't make any sense at all. So no, you can't play with knives. Okay, you can play with one of them. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you're confusing him. And he's in charge for sure. He knows he's going to get something. If he asks for something ridiculous, you're going to give him some of it. That's where he's going with that. That's the message you're sending to him. You're avoiding it. You're just avoiding the scene. I never try and avoid a scene. If I don't want a kid playing with the pillows on the bed, I'm quite happy to watch them have a scene and process the fact that they can't play with pillows on the bed. And I think that's the big thing with parents. They're always trying to avoid the fit scenes and meltdowns. Those are the lessons. If a kid says, I want to play with pillows, and I said, no, you can't play with the pillows on the bed. Then they start having a scene, then I'm like this. I always think, oh, okay, I just won that one. That's a lesson learned. Their fit scenes, meltdowns, and tantrums are their lessons. They're processing that they're not in charge and you are. So yeah, you're giving in. That's all you're doing. You're compromising and it's giving in.
So that was the end of the questions, but maybe just touch on the idea that you do get asked a lot of questions from grandparents. Why do you why do you not specifically talk about grandparenting?
I never do, because I don't teach I teach leadership parenting, and I don't teach grandparents how to be leaders. I'm a grandparent. She's not my kid. I mean, I do all this stuff with her, but if the parents had said to me, by the way, Mom, or, Lisa, as the daughter-in-law, can you from now on not do it that way or do it this way? I'd go, absolutely. Not my kid. It's your kid. That's why. You're not in charge. You're not the leader. Okay. But I do all this. They're kind of raising her the same way that I teach anyway. So it's, their choice. But yeah, it's not my kid. That's why I teach leadership. You're not the leader. You're the grandparent. It's different.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add for the Toddler podcast?
Yes, I do, because we talk a lot about discipline, but my main focus is always fun, always connecting, bonding, fun, play, joy, laughter, positivity. It's all the good stuff. That's where I put all my energy. The discipline is just a tiny annoyance that I have to go through. And that's why I just like to get it done quickly. I'm always trying to be a source of joy with kids and teenagers and toddlers, because they are drawn to that. They love joy. Their love language is fun. And I want to be that source of fun. And they know I'm not as fun when they act out. I get real quiet. I don't get stern. I get very quiet. They don't like that. So why on earth would they act out if they don't like quiet mom or quiet Lisa? Why would they? So yeah, I always lead with fun. That is your power. Fun, joy, positivity is your superpower. They are drawn to you when you're positive and you're fun to be around. And I don't put up with anything either, though. Okay. So when you're learning how to do this, you're going to have to put up with some stuff because you're just focused on one behavior at a time. But they don't want to be bad anyway. It doesn't feel good to be naughty. And you're kind of training them out of that. So that's your job. But it takes time. Toddlers are cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. They're going to try stuff. That's only normal. And just go, yeah, they're just toddlers. Whenever I'm working with a client, and they usually hire me for their older kids if they have older kids and toddlers. And then I'll sometimes say, do you want to talk about the toddler? And they'll just go, they're just nuts. So, because they've already been through it, they realize toddlers just aren't really all there yet. They're just forming. I think that's about it. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's everything. We have 2 episodes left of this series, and then we're back to our regular scheduled programming of Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Regular scheduled programming. Okay, thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow with session or series number 6, is it? Okay, happy parenting.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out bratbusters.com to learn more about the behavior board, parenting courses, and private one-on-one coaching with Lisa. If you've enjoyed the show so far, we'd love it if you could take a moment to follow, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more parents just like you. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. Lisa is a parenting coach, mom, and grandmother. She is not a licensed psychologist or counselor. Her services do not replace the care of psychologists or other healthcare professionals. For a full disclaimer, please visit bratbusters.com/disclaimer.